Giff strolled into his parlour and glanced through the cards on his desk. Some were invitations, others were personal cards left by friends who had already arrived in town. One of them from a school chum he hadn't seen for a few years, John, Marquis of Montague, caught Giff's attention. It would be good to see Montague again. The last time had been at his father's funeral. Perhaps they could take a ride tomorrow morning, before there were too many people in the park. Giff pulled a piece of paper from the drawer and scribbled a note, then tugged the bell pull. A footman entered the room. "Yes, my lord." Giff handed the man a message. "Have this taken to Montague House. Straight away, my lord." After the servant left, he wandered into his bedchamber. His evening kit was already laid out. As was his custom, he would dine at home his first evening back. Aside from that, he needed to develop a strategy to find a wife, in addition to depending on his mother, that was. In the past, he'd ridden his horse during the grand strut, but now he should consider taking his curricle. He glanced at the ormolu mantel clock. It was just after 5 o'clock. He had time to visit the stables before changing for dinner, and it was better to do it now than after he'd bathed. Muffled noises from the dressing-room informed him his valet was there. "Gone. I'm going to the stables. I'll be back within the hour." "Very well, my lord. I'll have your bath ready." Giff grinned. All the household servants in London, and most of them at Cleveland Castle, might be English, but his mother had insisted his personal servants be good, reliable Scotsmen from the various parts of her family. Another battle his father had lost. An hour later, after having been rebuffed by the stable-master, who insisted on having Giff's carriage sent around, he was dressed for an early dinner. He'd been pleased that his curricle had been newly painted and the cushions had been replaced. He didn't have to ask whose idea that was. Mamma was going to do her best to see him wed this season. The next morning, after having received confirmation of his invitation to Montague, Giff rode to Montague House and found his friend on the pavement next to his horse. "Good morning." "Good morning to you," Montague grinned. "Thank you for your note. It's been so many years since I've been to town, I wasn't sure how to begin." Giff studied his friend. "Wife hunting?" "Exactly," Montague grimaced. "As am I. Perhaps we can help each other." Although Giff really didn't think he'd need much help convincing the lady he chose to marry him. He was, as his father had said, the heir to a dukedom, not bad-looking, and had been told he made love charmingly. Montague mounted and gave Giff a dubious look. "Oh, if you've never searched for a wife before." "Ah!" He turned Horace, his horse, toward the park. "This might be the first time I'm willing to get leg-shackled, but it's not my first time enticing a female. Surely a young lady will be much the same. I imagine it will be even easier than with a more experienced woman. Not only that, but how many mammas would want their daughters to reject the heir to a dukedom? I suppose you're right." Montague rode next to Giff. Young ladies are disposed to do what their families wish. At least English ladies were. His mother and older sisters hadn't had that attitude, but that was the Scots side coming out. In a way, it was a pity. He'd like a lady more like his mother. Come to think of it, the lady he chose would have to show a strong strength of will in order to please his father. We shall see. Lady Alice Carpenter stared at the list she and her sisters had made. Intelligent, kind, like house animals, like children, make us laugh and think we are funny, interested in the plight of the poor and unfortunate, must support us in our charities and other ventures, passable-looking, allow us to be ourselves, be able to support a family, must love us in return. Something was missing. Unfortunately, she could not think what it was. She put the list back in the drawer. It would come to her sooner or later. At the moment, she must meet her sisters for their ride in the park. It was the first time they had been allowed to go with only a groom in attendance. As usual, she was the first one to arrive. Robertson, her groom and a former soldier, cupped his hands to help her mount Galena, her Cleveland bay. True to her name, she calmly stood until Alice's sisters, Lady Eleanor Carpenter, Alice's twin, and Lady Madeline Vivers,